Facing challenges and overcoming setbacks is part of doing business. Whether you have the expertise to survive them or not could mean the difference between success or failure. Welcome to We Are Women, featuring revealing conversations that provide invaluable insights into the success secrets of female masterminds. A must listen for every entrepreneurial woman. Now here's your host, Janine Vosper.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you are listening to this episode of the We Are Women podcast. I am Janine Vosper, and today I have Sandra Gartner. Now, Sandra understands small business. She was born into a small business family, so it's in her blood. I'll be interested to see what that blood looks like, Sandra. Having built and sold a multi-million-dollar company, she knows what it takes to be successful. Over the past 12 years, Sandra has solely focused on coaching small business owners to create the future where they can fully reap the rewards for their effort. And I know we put a lot of effort in as small business owners, so to be able to get those rewards and knowing how to do that, this is going to be a great listen. Working with over 1,000 business owners, from local startup to entrepreneurs to international well-established businesses, she produces results with her insightful, inspirational, and results-focused approach. Her unique approach is in developing the owner's self-leadership skills while supporting the implementation of a business improvement plan. This addresses both the personal and business roadblocks that are keeping owners and their businesses stuck. The results are increased profit, yay, productivity, yay, and joy, yay, yay. Sandra holds a graduate diploma in ontological coaching. I have to ask what that is. I have not heard of that word before. Is trained in positive intelligence coach and is a professional credential coach, which is a title as a PCC, with International Coaching Federation. She has a BA of Applied Science and Neuro-Linguistic Programming practitioner. So as you can hear, lots of experience, lots of skill base. It's going to be a great interview, a great conversation. Welcome, Sandra. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while.
Thank you, Janine. I'm very delighted to be here.
Reading through all of that, there's so much in there that when we've had conversation, we just resonated, haven't we, with the same approach to how we do things and what we do. What you say in here that small family business, and there's been changes in your life. Give us more history of that, because we really want to get to know you and your background.
Yep, sure. Okay, so yes, I was born into a small family business. So literally born into the business because my father was you could say a greengrocer. He had a mixed business, and his father was the same, and his father's father was the same. So a long line of small business owners. And I lived behind the shop. So when I was born, the family lived behind the shop. And really from the day I could count and, be at least half civil, I was working in the shops, stacking shelves, doing whatever I could do, because it was a lot of fun, hey? It was a lot of fun for me to hang out with my dad and my mum and my brother. And over that sort of 8-10 year period, that was really what I was immersed in. That was the conversations in our family. That was what we talked about around the kitchen table. Buy low, sell high. Where's your margins? How can we promote? How can we merchandise? All that. So it was really my world.
Where were you living at the time?
Adelaide.
Okay.
Adelaide, yeah. So, and my father had this very successful business, which actually had been his father's in Glenelg. If anyone knows Adelaide, it's a main shopping strip, Jetty Road, and it was very successful.
Oh, it's also a beautiful beach area too.
Beautiful,
Sandra.
yeah.
For those that are listening from overseas, Adelaide is the capital of South Australia, one of the states of Australia, and Glenelg is this amazing beach area. So what a nice place to grow up in.
Yeah, it was a beautiful spot, and it was very vibrant and very exciting. And that was my early years. And around the age of 10, something major happened with that business. And I didn't understand it at the time, but as I learned later, effectively my father had a major blow up with the landlord around something to do with the leasing. And he was just a very proud man, very fixed in his way of thinking, wasn't going to negotiate because he'd been there 20, 30 years. I mean, a long time. Felt he needed some special consideration. In the end, decided to walk out and thought that he had another business in another location, thought he could just build that one up. And effectively that really didn't happen. And it changed everything in our family because we had what I would consider, there was money in the family. I don't remember having to want for much at all when I was very young, to when I was 10, all of a sudden there was no money in the family. So it was a major shift. And he really struggled from there on, and suffered, I think, because of that decision he made, wasn't able to really come to terms with the consequences and what had happened. And really, I guess at the end of the day, didn't pick himself up from that setback. If you fast forward about 10 or so years, I was very fascinated, of course, in human behaviour, and I think that was informed through that period. So I studied in that domain and did went to university and learned about how people behave, how to work with I guess people's psychology to maximise their results. I actually worked as an occupational therapist for quite some time. But the calling for business really was speaking very loudly to me. And in my late 20s, I went into my first bricks and mortar business, and sort of that's where it started in terms of my love of business and what it could offer. Of course, that first business was a massive failure, but I always think of it as a learning experience.
It was learning. It wasn't a failure. It was an opportunity to learn, wasn't it?
That's exactly. It wasn't failure. It was feedback.
What sort of business was that, Sandra?
It was a cafe. So I love
what a great choice.
I love coffee. I love eating. I love hanging out with friends.
I think that's why a lot of people get into cafes, isn't it? It's this is great. I can be doing what I love every single day. It's not what happens, is it?
I know. And the thing was, it wasn't that the cafe failed. It was the partnership failed. Yeah. So it was two other friends. We were all young. We all had never been in business before. We had no idea, to be honest. And when there was trouble or problems within that partnership, in that relationship, that's when it all fell apart. So it wasn't that the business was poor or badly run or badly located. It was that the partners couldn't work through those difficult conversations. So again, I'm thinking, this is something I'm really tuning up to, and it just took me on a bit of a pathway then to venture into other avenues. And yes, I did some training on ontology, so ontological coaching. I can talk more about that. And really, after my third business, which was the big one, which I had for 14 years, it started as a partnership, funnily enough, and managed that partnership very well to the point where I actually bought my partner out. So it was a very good outcome. And then I sold it 14 years later. So that was a great success because I started that business with a very clear intention of wanting to create a home-based business, to start a family, and then to grow it as I could have the more time and availability to get it.
And what was that business, Sandra?
It was a wholesale. It started as a wholesale distribution company. So I was wholesaling health and wellbeing products into retailers. This is in the 90s, early 2000s. And they were Australian brands. And it was really at the start of the wave of all that natural therapy movement in many ways. And I got onto that wave and rode it, and went down the pathway of having agents or sales agents in other states. And then we went down, started importing some products as well, formed another partnership, and then I sold my business to that other partnership. So I sort of got the notion of why partnerships are great, but they do, of course, take work, and you've got to be able to manage those conversations and the difficulties that ultimately arise. And then from that day on, really, I went overseas for a couple of years with my husband and my then 9-year-old son, and came back, and then I got into coaching because I just saw that I could really bring those two elements together, my love of business and my love of developing the person that's running that business so that they can be who they need to be to have what they want to have. It has to come really from their own development if they want to break through those barriers that often are in our way. often invisible to us, in fact, in our way, and we need some support to be able to navigate our way through those barriers.
And I think, what you bring to the table more than a lot of other business coaches is that you've experienced from young child and seen how the emotional component of it changes business, but worked through things that haven't worked and have worked, and in different formats and in different types of businesses, and now being able to offer those skills and that learning and that knowledge to some, to other businesses, particularly startups or anyone that hasn't been in business for a while. So hopefully they can avoid a lot of those challenges, because we know the statistics with businesses going out of business within the first 3 years. It's quite significant. And the reason people get into something like the coffee shop, like coffee and friends and sitting around, or they're a great massage therapist, or they've got a great idea, but without some really solid base to what they're doing and the emotional capacity to follow through with it, it's really difficult. So having that knowledge and being able to impart that must feel really rewarding. I know as a coach, for me, that's the part that I absolutely love, when somebody goes, oh yeah, I got that, and then they apply it, not just get it, but they apply it.
That's often the thing, isn't it? It's wonderful to get that insight, but then you've got to apply it, and often that's requiring you to form new habits, because we habitually respond through our families, our stories, our past. We've got our own habitual ways of operating and responding to stress, and business will bring up lots of stress. So unless you learn new ways of responding to that stress, you're going to get the same result over and over and over again. So it is about learning other ways of responding to that stress so that you can have a different response. Not your habituated one. Gives you much more flexibility, and therefore if you can respond in a more positive way, that's going to open up possibilities, opportunities, and who knows where that goes. And that's what it's about. It's about that growth mindset.
And it's really hard, and it is so hard as a sole trader. In fact, someone hasn't done that, or when I was a GM of sales, my sales team were really like that. They were sole traders. They're in their own business, in their own territories, doing their own thing. Motivation. I was at a breakfast event yesterday, and a lawyer who's in her own business asked the speaker, how do you stay motivated? And it's great to be at an event and everything's working well, but then to have that mindset or the techniques to be able to go back into the office and go, oh, hang on, Netflix is calling or something, especially when you're working from home.
Yeah, and that's all the sabotaging that goes on, the self-sabotaging thinking, thoughts that come in, and that's an avoidance strategy right there. If you think, oh, what's on Netflix? Well, what are you avoiding? So the question is, that may be a habituated thing that you do, just avoid when things need to be done. Well, if you keep avoiding, what results will you get?
Yeah, and how do you avoid avoiding?
Yes, how do you avoid? That's a good question, because I can be an avoider. I mean, certainly if I've got a to-do list that's got plenty of things on it, I'm going to avoid the thing that's hardest. I'm going to do the easiest things, and that hard thing is going to keep rolling across. So I've got to look at myself and say, well, what's going on here that I'm not prepared to do the thing that I know is probably the most important thing to do? Why am I in that avoidance strategy? So yes, look, it's always, there's nothing new here. You can hear this said many ways, but it's definitely, first and foremost, it's about awareness. So for me, okay, I'm avoiding that hard thing on my list. I'm noticing I'm avoiding it. So there's that saboteur, that sabotaging thinking coming through. I know I need to do something about that. So how do I redirect myself? So awareness is first. We need to know that we're avoiding, and again, that's often the hardest piece, because we don't have any visibility around that. We just do what we habitually do. Don't even know it, just how we operate. It's just that same track we're going down, that same neural pathway I'm going to avoid, and then justify and rationalise why we avoided. So then you've got to be aware of it, then do something to intercept it. So something very simple. I always say to people, look, when you notice you're avoiding, just take a moment, take a few deep breaths, do something to intercept that mindset. I'm going to, in that example, that thing about let's go and watch that Netflix series I'm so into. Let's go and watch an episode, and then I'll come back to my to-do list. Well, if you notice that, hey, just sit with that for the moment. Do some breathing. Do something that brings you back to you. So often breath is easy, or some tactile thing, just for a few moments. Just notice it. So it's really a bit of mindfulness, if you like to put a word on it. Coming back to you, and then choosing a different response. So for me, in that example, I have a list of 10 things on my to-do list. The hardest thing is number 10. I come back to it and I look, maybe I'm not ready to do number 10 right now, but I'm going to do number 9 on my list, because that's an easy step in. I'm going to do the 9th one that's hard, that's on the list. And then once I've done that, I'm going to do the number 10. And then you approach it with much less resistance, much more ease and flow. You're much more able to just be open rather than restricted and anxious and stressed, which really closes things down.
And because you don't want to feel like you're forcing things. As a sales coach, one of the things that everyone tells me is the hardest thing to do is make the sales calls. You pick up the phone and make the sales calls. So I'll do everything else except doing that. One of my tips and techniques that I use, because we all do this, there's always some form of avoidance of something, is if the thing I don't want to be doing, I put on a work block for 30 minutes and I time it on my phone. Okay, you only got to do it for 30 minutes, Janine. That's it. So you get as much done as you can possibly do in 30 minutes. And it's quite amazing, because you're really focused and everything else is blocked out, and you don't look at other things coming through for that 30 minutes.
Right.
And then and it's all of a sudden that job's done, or you've made those phone calls, or you've done what you said, this is what I need to do for the next 30 minutes. And it does. It's really changed up some things for me, because I go, accounting, bookkeeping, love doing this. No, I'm doing it for 30 minutes. That's all I'm doing it for.
And isn't the funny thing about that is that you put so much energy into avoiding it. Like, a lot of brain power is going into that avoidance. And when you do it, like I did something, that number 10 on my list was sitting there the other day, and I finally said, I'm doing that now. It took 10 minutes. And when I did it, it was so easy to do. And it just opened up all this sort of, oh, God, that was great. And it was easy. And what was I really avoiding in the first place? So often you put much more effort into and more stress into avoiding it than is required to do it. Yeah. So I like your idea. Just get started, and then you'll start to see some movement and some results.
And I often do that 30 minutes on the thing I don't like at 11:30 in the morning, because then it's lunchtime. But you can't have lunch until you've done your 30 minutes.
There's a reward in that. Love that.
And if I'm working from home, I take a lunch break. I always make sure that I do. And so, right, okay, we can't have lunch break and get rewarded. And the reward is to stop for 30 minutes then for lunch and I think that's such an important factor for everyone who is working from home, is to give yourself that time. You get up and walk around every so often, that's always a good thing, but to take the time, take the lunch break, and make sure that you can recharge yourself, and whether that is, maybe for some people, what I used to do in winter, what I do in winter is I go for a walk for 30 minutes and just move the body. Certainly not doing. I got in my car this morning at 10:30 and it said it was 40 degrees outside. Now, people listening to this, they're going to probably be listening this months afterwards, but we're recording it in March, and it's 40 degrees outside.
Autumn, not even summer.
No. I know, it's absolutely crazy. Now, so we've talked, and part of that is doubting yourself, isn't it? That's a big issue.
Well, that's again sabotaging. So doubt is really about self-judgment. We're just judging ourselves, and this is really insidious. That saboteur of the judge, the person in your head, that little voice in your head that keeps criticizing, being critical, saying there's better people out there, there's people that are doing better than you could be doing better. That's just all beating yourself up. That's just whipping yourself with a stick. And through that, then you start to second guess and start to doubt yourself. And it's such a common thing. I see it a lot. That thing about being critical rather than being more discerning, not just critical of yourself or judging of yourself, but judging of others and judging of circumstances. It's very pervasive, and we have it because we've got that, we're humans, we all have that capacity, but it just doesn't run your life. And again, first thing you've got to notice it's there, and then it's really about a bit of self-compassion. When you see yourself beating yourself up with a stick because you feel like you're not good enough, well, how about we bring in a bit of self-compassion right now and focus on the goodness and the things you have achieved and who you are as a unique being and your contribution you've made, and forget about the comparison, because that is really very destructive.
Yes, comparing yourself with others, that's something that's very defeating sometimes. And I talk about this, and with your years of experience and background and mine, I say to people, I'm on page 35. You're on page 2 at the moment. Just don't put that extra pressure on yourself. The steps have to be in place that you work through each page, and eventually that you get to where you want to get to. Just give yourself a break, I mean.
Well, that's self-compassion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being gentle on yourself, knowing, hey, I'm on a journey. It's not a race. Every step I'm going to learn something new about myself, and that's going to inform my choices around my business and my life. So, don't think it's a race. Just know that it's a journey. It's a learning journey.
I know I've invested in some training and something that's totally left field of what I do, but it creates it's a different way of dealing with money or dealing with finance things, and it's to set up full-on passive income, 100% passive income. And I signed up for it, and I'm thinking, all right, I listened to the first video yesterday, and I thought, this is my future. I don't need to rush at this now. I need to take the steps, do the training that I'm being given, but not have to think there's a deadline on it. There's a building of knowledge to that's what we've done over the years, is build our knowledge to be able to now offer that to someone. This is something so foreign to me that I have no idea about. And I had to pull myself back and go, just take those steps, Janine. I'm starting on page 1 with this. Well, I'm actually starting in the forward of the book. I have no idea about it.
And that's learning, isn't it? We're always, when we're starting to learn something new, we're always starting, on page 1. So it's a continual cycle of learning, relearning new things, and that's what keeps life interesting. Challenging ourselves, putting ourselves forward like that.
Yes, and a lot of people, call it that imposter syndrome, or am I good enough to be doing this? Who am I to compete with whoever else is out there, and that judgment of self compared to somebody else, and that comes back to that you are you.
That's it. And that's unique and beautiful and wonderful. And let's just work with that. And sometimes people have lost sight of that. And so it's about really connecting back in with the true essence of you, who you are and your expression in the world. And you've just chosen business as a vehicle of your expression in this domain. You've got other ways of expressing yourself, but I'm very much interested in your expression of yourself through your business, and how can we grow that and grow you alongside it. There was a wonderful saying going back to the comparison. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. I love that.
Yeah.
So
no.
if you want to lose joy, just compare yourself.
Yeah. And it is human nature to do that. And you just pull back on it and give yourself a break and recognize it. And that's what you said before, that when you're looking at the avoidance or the procrastination, is question it, go recognize it, go, oh, I'm doing that, and then ask, why am I doing that?
What am I avoiding? What's the cost of my avoiding? What's the payoff? Because there's often a payoff too, right? We do these strategies because they work for us, and we learnt them very early on. So we often have a few favourites, a couple of favourites that we operate through, and they've worked for us in the early years for whatever reason. Kept us safe, kept us connected, kept us in the family, all that stuff, good stuff, and they've still got value. So there's still value in that. Like, as I said, the avoider, and I can recognise the avoider in me. I like to keep the peace. So, I have a tendency to want to avoid conflict. Well, that doesn't help me in relationship. I have to learn when there's conflict. I have to step into it and know how to deal with it. Because my natural tendency, if I just habitually went down the normal pathway, which I learned from a very early age, would be to pull back, to just get out of that place. But the gift in that avoider strategy is I'm a terrific negotiator. I can really mediate. I can get two teams together, two people together that are in conflict, because I have that natural ability to see both sides and want to form some sort of unity or get some alliance or get them back together. So there's a gift in the avoider. The problem is, when it's overdone, there can be a cost. So you've got to recognise, again, it's not bad, it's just overdone, and it keeps you stuck in a certain way of operating. We need much more flexibility if we want to be able to navigate life's challenges, because, it's so uncertain.
Yes, and yes, definitely flexibility and not hard focused, and what we think and believe is only a thought. It's not a reality.
There you go. And that's ontology right there.
Is that what it is? That's where I was going to come with that. Very good. I'm on the ball.
That's it.
I didn't know that really. But that's something that I'm a true believer in. Exactly that is. It's just a thought. So tell me more about ontology.
Ontology. Okay, so it's effectively a branch of philosophy, and it's really about reality, the creation of reality. And if you want to think of it this way, there's different layers of reality. So, like we talk about first order reality, it's stuff that's undisputable, like gravity. We all agree gravity exists, so it's absolutely given. That's reality, first level. Second level reality might be, the currency system, dollars. They're only a bit of paper, right? But we've assigned value to them, and we've all agreed as a society that this monetary system has got intrinsic value. But really, it's just an agreement amongst a lot of people that that's what it is. So that's second order reality. The interesting one is the third order reality, which is what we make up ourselves, and most of it is what we make up ourselves. We interpret the world. We don't interpret the world as it is. We interpret the world as we are, and that's the distinction. So through all our history, our cultural context, through our experiences, when we see something, like I'm seeing you right now, I'm seeing your background, I'm seeing a whole lot of things on this screen, I am making up a story in my head about Janine Vosper. Now, it may be totally off key, might be off base, although we have met, so I do have a sense of you. I know you, I've spoken to you before, so I'm pretty sure it's not that off key. However, it's effectively in my head. And what I make that reality mean, informs a lot of things that are available to me. So, for example, if I thought you were a scary, person, first of all, I probably would have said no to this podcast interview, right? Well, hey, you're not a scary person, but I might have interpreted you as a scary person for some reason, and therefore this opportunity of being here today would never have materialised.
If you give me bad customer service, Sandra, I can be a scary person.
Okay, thank you for the warning. So it's very informed, as does our moods and our emotions. So, we're a whole system where our language, which is our words and our thoughts, so we're talking about thoughts, we're our language, how we communicate, we're our moods and our emotion. So that informs how we view the world. So if I'm living from a mood of resignation, for example, a mood of resignation, then I am not going to see opportunity. I'm going to think the world is against me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see the opportunity that you present or anyone else presents necessarily, because I just feel that I'm resigned to my life and I have no influence over my life. I have no agency over my choices. It's just coming at me and I've got to put up with it. So that mood is very important. And the third aspect really that we deal with in ontology is the body. So the body is a wonderful instrument for bringing awareness to how we're showing up in the world, how we get perceived in the world. And it's definitely a vehicle for us to develop, because we often, again, think we just operate from the head up. It's all intellect, it's all thoughts. There's nothing below the neck. Well, the body is a wonderful instrument for wisdom, and we need to bring the body into our decisions, not just our thinking. And that's where the wise knowledge can come from. So yeah, that's oncology. It's a beautiful area. It's a really interesting area. And I trained with a college down in Melbourne that basically trains coaches, ontological coaching. So that's my approach.
Fascinating. That's definitely resonates so much with what creates interest in me, is learning more about that, because it's so, and a lot of the other subjects I've studied over time talk about, you know, the values and beliefs and why we make decisions. So I'm just finding that absolutely fascinating. And particularly, you know, I heard someone speak last night, and they were talking about how if someone cut us off in traffic, we tend not to go, oh, that poor person, I wonder if they're trying to get someone to the hospital, or maybe they're late for work, or, you know, and you don't go there. You just go, gosh, they cut me off. It's a totally different space that we just don't go to, and particularly in instant, you know, when something affects us instantly, we go into straight back into a belief of, oh, someone's done me wrong by doing that.
So that's a wonderful example of just that habituated response. Something happened, a stressor, a trigger, and you immediately went to something. Someone's doing something to me, like I'm getting cut off, I'm being, you know, imposed upon, and that can raise, you know, certain feelings, anger, you know, whatever, stress. But you're right, there could be a whole lot of other circumstances that you are unaware of that would have changed maybe your response had you, again, just come back to you know, yourself thinking, you know, okay, it's obviously stressful, whatever's going on, I'm feeling the stress, it's rising in me. Let's just center the body, let's center ourselves, and then maybe think differently about the situation. How that looks. I mean, at the very least, it's going to stop you having a miserable time in the car getting to where you're going.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I have to not tell people to put a little sticker in their car with the 3 letters NMP on there, and so that every time you're driving along, if something happens like that, it's just not my problem.
Yeah,
and just let it go. And it's a visual reminder. We can, oh, look at that car there. They haven't got the kids in the seatbelts. Not my problem. Just because otherwise you'll take it away, and I was driving somewhere today and I didn't see the kids in the seat. You know, you'll tell the story multiple times, and in that intensity that you build up when it was something that was not your problem in the first place,
and you couldn't influence necessarily because you're in a car.
Correct.
But, that's right. And so you're carrying all that stress and anxiety around with you, and where does that take you, you know, on a daily basis? Well, it takes you out of ease and flow. It takes you out of that congruency. And how much better is it when we know we're in that place of, okay, this is what I need to do. I'm going to do it effortlessly. It's not going to be difficult. It's not going to be hard. I'm just going to, you know, work through it. That's the ideal. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's that's what we're aiming for, to make it not a struggle.
And particularly, you know, it's so important in life, but in business, if we can be doing things as easily as possible,
of course,
then wow, that makes, and have an expectation, and you know, putting it out to the universe that this expectation, this is going to go well, I'm going to get the results I want. And because you're in flow, that everything's in flow around you, it tends to happen, doesn't it?
Well, it's self-fulfilling, because if that's what your belief is, you'll show up in that interaction. Say you're having a conversation, or you're presenting something, or you're meeting someone. You'll show up in a way that's very open and optimistic. So of course it's self-fulfilling. It's more likely to be easy. It's more likely to work well. It's more likely to give you the results you're after than if you're coming in a different mindset, you know, different emotion, where you're more constricted, more closed off, more anxious. We've got to, it's really about opening up to possibility and opportunity, and how you can show up to maximize that. And that's what business requires. And business is all about relationships. You cannot not have a business without having relationships. And the better we are at building, developing those relationships, and dealing with the difficulties that arise out of those relationships, the better we're going to be, and the healthier. Back to wellness, your comment about wellness. We're going to be able to have better relationships, have better well-being, and ultimately have more successful businesses in life.
And is that part of your whole business model when you're coaching? Is in that space?
Yeah, that's right. So I have this whole piece that I do at the beginning. So it's a foundational piece. It's like if you're going to build a house, if we're going to take your business to the next level, because mostly people come to me when they're stuck, they're at a plateau. So if we're going to accelerate and get further ahead, we've got to look at what the foundations are, and that's you. So I do a foundational piece, which is the positive intelligence piece, and that's a 6-week program, which is done via an app. So it's a really highly developed program, which is effectively making you aware of those sabotaging tendencies, like the avoider, like the judge, and reprogramming neural pathways to choose better responses. So if we can get you more tuned up, so it's basically a tuning up of the way you operate. And then I will come in during that phase, do a bit of an analysis of the business, see where you're at, where you want to go, what we need to do to get you there. And then we work after that initial foundational piece is done. So usually I want to say a minimum of 6 months, but I've had clients for much longer because there's a lot of work to do to keep things moving and growing.
And, anyone in any position anywhere needs a coach. Because coaches keep you on track, and then as you work through your business, finding out what you need or what your goals are, and finding the right coach to fit within that program. I mean, that just makes sense. It's really dumb trying to create different results, and as you found out in your first business with 3 partners, if you had a business coach in amongst that, it would have been a different result with it.
I agree. And coaches weren't really around in those days, but I learned that lesson. And my last business, I definitely brought in a business coach when I felt like I'd stalled, and that was a revelation to have someone external look at what was going on and support me to grow and keep me on track and really champion me forward when I was starting to think, well, is this it? Is this as far as I can go? Well, no, it's not. You can go as far as you want to go.
And that's the thing, is you don't know, no matter how much skill you develop over years, that you still need someone who's got more skills or different skills than you to be able to look at something from a different space. Otherwise, you're just continually doing the same thing and getting the same results, because that's all you have. And I find that even not just in business, but with mental health issues as well, that's so important to get the right assistance that you need, because whatever got you into that situation is not going to get you out.
That's it.
That's exactly right. Need help, need to get, and there's so much capacity out there for people in business or in their own lives for experts out there that can help with very specific fields and to find them.
That's right.
You can try.
Plenty of choices. You just got to sort and sift and find someone that you really resonate with, and that you can work with, basically, that gets you and gets where you're going.
And resonate. Now that's part of that body thing, isn't it?
That's right.
About the gut. What is it about this person that I really resonate with, or what is it about this that goes? I'm feeling it in the gut. So is that part of what you were talking about? How the body responds to things?
Yeah, I mean, I think we there's a lot of signals, right? So like when I feel anxiety, I feel it in my chest. So I notice the tingling in my chest. When I resonate with someone, when I really want to be with them, I notice I want to lean forward and want to talk to them more. There's some connection that's drawing me in. So my body's responding, and I'm not even aware of it. When I am aware of it, it's a wonderful bit of information that can inform me, and how I respond, how I show up, how I talk to people.
And it made me think about the opposite part of that, because as a presenter, I was at a business the other night doing some training on what was I doing it on? Oh, they had different generations in the workplace and how they could communicate more effectively. And there was, one person in particular that was pulled back, hands crossed. And I had 17 people in the room. That 16 were leaning forward, they were engaged. Where was my focus? on that one person until but I know better. So I shifted it, but I was aware of it for a little bit, that why am I focusing on that one person? But he was fully engaged. I discovered later, and wanted to do some more work. It was just his mannerisms, his style. He'd had a big day at work. He really didn't want to be there until he realized how much of value it was going to be. There's a whole lot of things, but if you get stuck in that focusing on that negative component, or what I like to say, if we don't notice our green lights, but we notice the red lights when we're driving. If we focus on those red lights, then it builds that judgment of self, frustration, rather than just telling a different story.
Yeah, I love that example, because literally your interpretation of that situation was that he was not engaged. And if you continue to focus on him, you might have had a whole lot of conversations going on in your head about the quality of your speech and how good you were and all that, But effectively, he was engaged. We had to have the conversation to find out, well, no, that he was engaged, but I'm making this up in my own mind. So good that you checked that out, and he was engaged, and then there's some possibilities there for you. But many people would respond to that in a way of saying, I'm not any good, I can't, I'm not a good speaker. And that could certainly impact the rest of their presentation because of that.
Yeah, I remember one of my clients telling me that she had someone fall asleep. I've had someone fall asleep in mine too, but then again, I found out why. But this gentleman fell asleep. It was one of her senior managers, and he was in the front, and she's gone, this is just awful. It's not going anywhere. And that was where she said her whole focus went. And she just thought it was a terrible, terrible presentation. Anyway, when she finished, he woke up, and he came over and apologized. He said, look, I am so sorry. I got a brand new baby in the house. I tried to stay awake. It was great. Your information was awesome. I want you to come and present it to my team next. And, I promise I'll stay awake for it. But she had focused 100% of her attention on, this is just going so badly.
Another great strategy is knowing that, in those situations, of course, there's always going to be someone in the room that you're going to interpret as being, bored. They might yawn, they might go to the toilet, whatever, might fall asleep. So you just got to rethink it. Like before you go on stage, this possibly may happen. Okay, it's happened before. It may happen. If it does happen, do what you do and refocus on someone else in the room that is engaged, because then you will continue to go with ease and flow and do a magnificent job, rather than getting pulled down that negative spiral of thinking, I'm not doing so well and he's fallen asleep. So it's just preempting it, getting prepared for that to happen, because ultimately I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's not just in a speaking situation. It's the same in business, isn't it? It's, I've had this lousy customer, or I've had this has gone wrong, but you've had 30 other great customers. What went right with them
So negative bias, we always focus on what's negative. And again, it's a survival strategy. We've had to survive as a species. So, there's the positive in it, but the negative is it's not useful when we don't have, that threat for life, if you like. And we need to look at it sort of a bit differently.
Yes, yeah. And even how the body responds, and that's part of it, so that I said about the gut, but it's not just that, is it? It's the whole wellness of the body as well, the interaction.
Yeah, we're a whole system, and not just internally. You're a system, I'm a system, we've got a system between us. We're creating something between us right now that's emerging, that's not ever been there before. It's, conversational, and out of conversation comes vision, possibilities, who knows, for the future. But the body is part of that, and we do get into sync with people when we speak with them. We have this resonance that happens between us. It's a very powerful instrument that is often ignored, and it gives a lot of information, a lot of feedback. And as you say, early on you said, you take yourself off for a walk at lunchtime. Well, that's about just getting out and getting some air into the lungs, getting a bigger perspective, seeing something new and fresh in the world rather than just a computer screen, and then coming back. So your body's been refreshed, nourished, moved, and then you can come back with more energy, better approach. So that's a deliberate action to support the body, to keep you in peak performance.
I must admit, I used to do it a lot more when I was in the GM role. I used to do it a lot, and even during summer, 30-something degrees, and I would get in the car and I would go and eat my lunch at one of the local parks or in the bush or something, just to shift out of that space. And that's a bit what you were saying, just recognizing something or shifting or taking a deep breath or something that works for you, that if you are hearing those voices, or you're making judgment calls, or you've got something that's blocking you, you're procrastinating, to shift it somehow.
That's it. And there's many strategies, and people have their favorites, as you say. Often I take deep breaths, just to pause, so there's a bit of a break in my response. But I'll take some deep breaths in the moment. Before any coaching conversation, I'll spend a few minutes really getting focused and centered, so that I'm totally able to be present with you. If I'm in a really tense situation with, like, my husband, there's a moment of things are building for whatever reason, I'll just say, look, I need 10 minutes. I'm walking away. I'm coming back in 10 minutes. I'm not going to disengage, but I just need 10 minutes to get my head right. I'm coming back in 10. So
good on you.
There's lots of ways to sort of keep yourself in, but manage your state so you're in the best possible shape. Because the thing I don't want to have happen in those moments is to lose it or react in a way that I would normally have reacted, and then it just escalates or doesn't get resolved. I don't want that. I want to be able to engage properly and effectively, and I want us to come to some better solution because we're coming at it together in a respectful way. But if I'm in the heat of the moment, I'm not able to do that. My emotions are far too high. I need to break away and then come back and say I'm coming back. So not just walk out, but I'm coming back.
No, well done with that. I teach a topic called spiral dynamics, and it's how we go into red, and it's just whether we stay in red or we can recognize, oh, I'm in red, or we step out. And that's often something I'll often say is to step out and look at the situation. So I'm not really in it anymore, but look at, that was an interesting response. And I know I had a bad response to someone. I had really bad backache the other day, and then someone told me I couldn't park somewhere. It was closer to where I needed to be, and there was thousands of car parks. And so, yes, I did not respond well. I as well cancel my booking then, or something was my response. My husband said later, why did you say that? And I thought, it only lasted a moment. And I thought, I'm just in pain. And I just wasn't in the moment to be thinking, should I respond in a different way? I took the red way in that instant, that second.
I think what you're saying is also it's about that subject object thing. Like, if we can say that the behavior is external to us, like, oh, here I am, I notice I'm potentially going to react in a certain way to this person that won't let me park there. All of a sudden you're not taking it as you. It's not you, it's your behavior, and then you've got much more ability to have impact on that behavior. Look, my tendency is to avoid this. It's not me, it's my tendency to avoid this. So I've got more impact to change it. That's sort of really important.
Yeah. And both of those, one confronted or one avoided, they don't resolve a situation in the most effective way. I tend not to avoid, Sandra, I will give you that. I'll tend to jump in.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and often it's mostly it's not coming from red, I'll call that from that space, but it's different ways to approach things. As you said, recognize it's a behavior.
Yeah, it's a behavior you've learned, and you can easily learn other behaviors.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to, continually learn and adapt and be flexible, ride the waves, so to speak, because business and life is full of peaks and troughs.
Absolutely. Look, this conversation has gone so quickly, and we're up to, I usually ask, for sharing of 3 main takeaway points that we want people to remember. What can you add for those 3 takeaway points?
Okay, so I think I had to remind me what my takeaway points were, so let me just remember. But look, I think there's so many things I'd like the listeners to take away from this. And, barriers are often self-imposed. We can't see them, and know that you can move around, move through, move over barriers if you're willing to build your awareness. So build some awareness, and sometimes you need someone to help you with that. Sometimes you can do it yourself. But we've got to, first of all, be aware that those barriers are there, and the behaviours that we've used previously may not get us through them, whether that's in business or in life. So definitely that's important. The other thing I'd like people to, I guess, take away is the importance of what I call mental fitness, learning ways to deal with those life's negative, or how we tend to habitually respond in a certain way, and we want to shift that to a more positive response. So build your mental capacity, build mental fitness. And the other one is really, ideally what is a valuable life for people is if they are at effect, or if they have some choice over how they build their life. So it's about, are you going to be the author of your own life, or is someone going to write your story? And look, we go through phases. There's times I feel like I'm not authoring my own life, but I'm ultimately working always to make sure that I am as much as I can. I want to create my story. I don't want someone else to create it for me. And that is going to take really a lot of internal work ongoing to be at that point of self-authoring, as opposed to what I call a socialised mind, just responding in a way that's expected and through whatever upbringings you've had. So work towards being self-authoring would be something I'd love people to reflect on.
I like that. That point. I often say it's driving. You're driving the bus.
Yeah.
You're not in the back seat.
Yeah.
It makes a difference when you are the driver of what you want to create.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get in touch with you, Sandra, talk about more about how they can work with you. How's the best way for people to contact you?
Probably the easiest way is the website. They can certainly book a coaching conversation with me if they'd like to have just a complimentary conversation. I'm always happy to do that with people. So just go to Essentia, ESSENTIA coaching.com.au, or you could find me on LinkedIn, Sandra Gartner on LinkedIn, and you'll find out all about me.
Excellent. And all the contact details and all social media will be in the notes of the podcast as well, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on your favorite podcast channel. Sandra, thank you so much. There's just so much in there, and I just resonate with everything that you're saying. It was brilliant, and it's so important that we recognize how we are in control.
Yep, that's it. Thanks, Janine. I really enjoyed it. Lovely to see you again, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another episode of the We Are Women podcast. So thank you for joining me and listening or watching, depending on where you are located. Remember that you can go to JanineVosper.com and book a discovery call. How I might be able to help you, but guess what? If I can't, I have got a full bank of people that will be able to assist you achieve the results that you want. Have a fantastic day, week, month, year, whatever you're up to, and I look forward to you joining me next time on the next episode of the We Are Women podcast. Bye-bye for now.
So, do you feel stuck in a rut in business? Visit speechperfect.com.au and download Janine's free ebook to avoid the 5 most common stumbling blocks women face in business. It's jam-packed full of tips to overcome the barriers that could be holding you back from the success that you dream your business will be. We would love you to leave a review of today's episode and share this podcast with other women in need of entrepreneurial inspiration. Subscribe to the next episode now and join the We Are Women community.